There's an old version of you running your life right now. It is an outdated operating system that you didn't choose, but it still controls your beliefs, your emotions, and literally every decision that you make. And this is the reason why you keep experiencing the same relationship challenges, the same financial ceiling, the same emotional reactions that seem to hijack you out of nowhere. And it's not that you're not trying, it's that you've been trying to think your way out of a program that lives deeper than your conscious mind. And that's why journaling, meditation, and positive thinking, they feel good in the moment, but they don't create lasting change. Now, imagine for a moment what your life would look like if you could uninstall these self-limiting beliefs and programs. In today's episode, I'm going to teach you how to identify the beliefs that are keeping you stuck at your current level, how to uninstall those limiting beliefs and reinstall new ones using a simple 3-step process. And I'm going to show you why some limiting beliefs seem like they're just sticking around forever and how to pull them out at the root for good. We're going to go deeper than you've ever gone before in today's episode of A Changed Mind. All right, guys, today I'm going to walk you through the entire framework for controlling your reality, for literally creating whatever it is that you want. And this is not some sort of woo-woo new age conversation. This is a fundamental understanding of how reality works and how you interface with it using your thoughts and emotions. We've had over 200 episodes on this show, over 20 million listens over the last 18 months. If there was one episode I recommend you listen to, it is this one. What I'm going to walk you through is the exact framework that I take over 1,000 entrepreneurs through on just day one of my 3-day annual live event, The Powerful Living Experience. So if by the end of this episode you like what you hear and you want to actually experience it live, you can check out the event below in my YouTube store on this page, or if you're listening on audio, in the show notes. So the first thing that we have to establish is you absolutely create your own reality. That little old book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, Napoleon knew what he was talking about. He identified 13 things the most successful and powerful and wealthy people in the world did, but the central concept was that you create your reality and you create your reality through what you think. Just as birds were born to fly and fish were born to swim, human beings, you were born to create something out of nothing, to take an idea and create it into reality. And so the first thing that we have to start with, and Napoleon talks about this, he describes it as a burning desire, is number one, start with clarity on what you want. What is it that you want? Now, during my event, I take attendees through what I call your perfect day visualization. If you could, despite time and despite space and despite any limitations, just snap your fingers and create a reality, a life, a business, relationships, a health that you would want, what do you want? That's the most important thing to define first. Desire is the starting point because desire is the catalyst for all change. In other words, we were given this capacity to want or to desire because it's what motivates us to move out into the world and to start working with the friction of our life, to start working with the material of our current reality that represents our current consciousness or our current way of thinking, so that we can learn more about what it is that we believe and who we are through our interaction with our reality. In other words, if you want to get to the next level of your life, it's about removing some sort of resistance that's inside of you that will unlock that capacity of your new reality. You want to make more money, you have to look at what's inside of you that's preventing you from making more money, the fears, the doubts, the limitations. And so desire is the starting point for your creator's journey. So what is it that you want? I remember when I first got into this work and I understood the importance of getting clear on what I want, and I had a hard time with it. You know, I grew up in a family where I was kind of told what I wanted. I don't know if you can relate to this, but it was like I would say I want this, and my mom or my dad would go, you don't want that, you want this instead. Like the decisions for what I desired were made for me, and I find that this is very, very common with a lot of people. The years ago when I first started coaching, I was coaching a professional Major League Baseball player. He had been in the league for 11 years, extraordinary success that's really almost unheard of. And he was moving into his final year. And so I was helping him transition out of his lifestyle and career and identity as a Major League Baseball player into whatever was going to come next. And I said, hey, Jamie, what is it that you want? And he paused for a moment. He thought for a moment. And then he started getting emotional. And then he started crying. I mean, this was a man in his late 30s who was in tears simply because I asked him a question, which is, what do you want? And he said, you know what, I realized like I've built up this identity where kind of baseball was an obligation. And when you ask me what I want, I don't know what it is that I want. And that makes me feel so broken. He's not broken. I was not broken. You're not broken. It's just that our parents, our social surroundings, our career, our vocation, sort of the world, the system that we're in, it neuters us. It removes us from our capacity to claim what it is that we want. And so many of us in our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, our 60s, we're learning how to redevelop that muscle to get clear on what we want. But one of the beautiful things is that life will give you the clues to what you want because you're very clear on what you don't want. If what you don't want is financial insecurity, then what you want is financial abundance. Right? If what you don't want is to continue to be alone, then what you want is to find a soulmate. If what you don't want is the aches and pains and the chronic inflammation or the autoimmune disease, then what you want is a healthy and vibrant body. If you've been feeling disconnected and lonely and wanting to have a spiritual connection, right? That feeling of loneliness is what drives you towards a relationship with the higher power of your own understanding. So don't lament if you don't know what you want, because I'm pretty sure you know what you don't want. And whatever the opposite of that is what you desire. So step one is you got to get clear on what you want. Why is this important? Because step two is to ask yourself this question. Okay, if that's what I want, what's the problem? What's the problem? You know, what I want is to grow my business. The problem is I'm not very technically oriented. The problem is I'm not an internet marketer. The problem is I can't get my team to do what they're supposed to do. The problem is I don't have enough money and I have to do marketing in order to make money, but I don't have money to do the marketing. What's the problem? What I want is to be in a relationship with someone. The problem is there are no good ones left out there. What I want is to restore the intimacy in the relationship I have. The problem is he doesn't understand or she doesn't understand or it's been this way for so long. What's the problem? What's the problem is such a powerful question because the answer that you have to what's the problem starts to reveal to you this root cause thing called what you believe. It's not necessarily true that there are no good men or women out there and all the good ones are taken, but if that's what you believe, that will become your reality. Because your thoughts are things that create your reality. It's not necessarily true that you can't be successful in your business because you don't have money. There are plenty of marketing strategies that you can implement that don't require any money or a lot of time or even a big team or technology. But if you actually believe that you need money, then that becomes your reality. And we're going to talk about that here in a moment, how you actually create your reality. But step two is to identify the problem. What's the problem? I want you to think right now. You can even, if you're following along on YouTube, post it into the comments. What's one thing you want? What's the problem? Right? The problem is there's not enough money. The problem is there's not enough time. The problem is I can't trust people. The problem is I'm not good enough. The problem is I've never done it before. Was that really the problem that you've never done it before? See, we're starting to realize your limiting beliefs. Because just think about it. If the problem is that you've never done it before, well, before we've ever done anything, we've never done it before. So is that really a problem? I mean, aren't we capable of learning how to do new things? I mean, at one point in time, you were crawling around on the ground, right? At 8 months old. Did you ever learn to walk? Did you ever learn how to do something you'd never done before? So what you'll see in this really simple question, this sort of binary model, what do you want? What's the problem? Is number one, you're declaring and getting clarity on your desires. And number two, you're starting to understand what is it that you believe around the thing that you want? Because the belief is actually the thing blocking you from creating what you want. And that takes us to step three. Step three, I would say, is you have to understand your brain is a goal-achieving machine. So your brain will produce any outcome, but it's going to be based off of what you believe. So again, if you believe that money is scarce, even though you want to be a millionaire, your brain is going to achieve that financial scarcity. See, your brain is a goal-achieving machine, and it's programmed by what you believe. Your brain is the most extraordinary creative technology in the history of the universe. Like, it allows you to create something from nothing, right? This is like magic. We are magical creatures that are able to materialize and literally sculpt and shape reality according to our will. But the question is, what's your will? What is it that you believe? You know, this is not, again, woo-woo. On one level, the idea that your beliefs create your reality is established by behavioral psychology. Behavioral psychology basically says that what you believe determines what you think on a moment-by-moment basis. And so if what you believe or learned when you were a child was that you can't trust people, you'll constantly be evaluating life through thoughts of mistrust, right? Of betrayal, right? You'll be actually looking for evidence for the fact that people cannot be trusted, and you'll ignore all evidence that supports the idea that people can be trusted. What you believe, you think. And what you think, you feel. That's really what emotions are. There's some exceptions, and I won't go too deep into it right now, but your thoughts create emotions. So when you're thinking to yourself, I don't have enough time, the emotion you feel is overwhelm. when you think to yourself, I might make a mistake, the emotion that you feel would be hesitation or timidness. So every time you have a thought, you experience an emotion. Your beliefs create your thoughts create your emotions determine your action, what you do or what you do not do. And your actions over time determine your results. And so this is a very simple cause and effect. Beliefs produce thoughts produce emotions produce actions produce results. If there's a result that you want, all we need to do is make sure the belief is aligned with the outcome. And 100% of the time, you will produce the result. I love one of the stories that Napoleon Hill talks about. It's not in Think and Grow Rich. I think it's in maybe Outwitting the Devil or another book, where we find out that his son was actually born without, I guess it was eardrums. Like his son's ears weren't fully formed, so he couldn't hear. But Napoleon and his wife instilled into his son the belief that he would hear someday. And so when he was like 11 years old, they found him, they had a record player in the corner of their room, and the music was playing. Of course, the son couldn't hear it, but one day they found their son biting on the table where the record player was, because he could then feel the vibration, he could hear the music. And his life continued to evolve, and at some point in his early 20s, he actually got a job as a salesperson for one of the earlier cochlear implant technology companies, as one of the first people who ever had a hearing aid. So no matter how impossible it may seem, whatever you believe you can create, but we have to be conscious of what you believe. Is what you believe in alignment with what you want? So again, it's this idea that your brain is a goal-achieving machine. And whatever the input is, which is the belief, the output will become your reality through the mechanism of the human being operating system, how beliefs become thoughts, thoughts create emotions, emotions determine or drive action, and action over time produces results. And what's so interesting about this is the results will always reinforce 100% of the time the belief. So if you believe in prosperity and abundance, you'll make money and you'll go, see, the world is prosperous and abundant. If you believe that money is hard to make, you might make money, but you'll actually look at the journey of your making money, the result, man, I worked really hard. I was able to make some money, but that almost killed me. And the conclusion you'll come to is, I had to work really hard to make money. So it's always this self-fulfilling prophecy. This is what's called a psychocybernetic loop. So the challenge that we have is that we get stuck with the same results, and then we try to change the action. But the action is a byproduct of our emotions, which is a byproduct of our thoughts, which is a byproduct of our beliefs. So if we actually want to change the result, we have to change the belief that created the result in the first place. Another way of looking at this is like, if we could just program your brain like a billionaire, 100% you'd become a billionaire. Like if we could just install thoughts, remove all of the thoughts or the beliefs that you have that are not in alignment with how a billionaire would think or believe, and install all billionaire beliefs into your brain, 100% guaranteed you'd become a billionaire. If we program your brain like a sick person, 100%, you'll become a sick person. I was programmed to believe that there was something wrong with me. And so that became my reality. I would work on my business and not produce the results that I wanted. And the conclusion that I would come to as I was observing the results that I produced was, there's something wrong with me. As I got into my 30s and 40s, I've shared this on other episodes, I got really, really sick. And you know what my reaction to my experience of unwellness was? I would say this to myself in my own head, there's something wrong with me. No matter what doctors I saw, what protocols are applied, I could never get well, even though I was seeing the best people in the world, because at a root cause level, I fundamentally believed there was something wrong with me. And so my reality had to reflect that back to me. In this case, it was reflecting it back to me in the form of my physical body. Now, I'm much healthier than I was even a year ago, certainly 2 years, 3 years ago. And the reason for that is I shifted my beliefs. Now, you'd look at how I got well and you'd say, but Dave, you changed your supplementation. But Dave, you discovered this specific coach or wellness practitioner that helped you. Yes, but all those things were a byproduct of me shifting my beliefs, because my brain is a goal-achieving machine. That's what caused me, once I shifted my beliefs, to have different thoughts, to look up different people. It created coincidences and synchronicities where I was able to actually connect with life, and life helped me produce these results. Hey, it's David. Quick announcement before we get back to your episode. Our annual event, the Powerful Living Experience, is coming up. There's a link in the show notes, or you can visit powerfullivingexperience.com. Check out the video of last year's event. We're going to be bringing together 1,000 impact-driven entrepreneurs, leaders, and game changers to spend 3 days doing what matters most. going really, really deep on identifying the limiting beliefs and subconscious programs that are still preventing you from your full potential, and going through deep experientials and trainings and transforming them. We're also going to be getting into concepts like wealth creation, purpose, greatness, money, relationships, health. And if you're an entrepreneur, we're going to be spending about 20% of that event opening up my business playbook, the same strategies and tactics and techniques that we use to go from $0 to $30 million in an impact-driven business while spending 90% of my time doing what I love. There's nothing like the Powerful Living Experience. Inc. named it a top 3 must-attend personal development event for entrepreneurs and leaders, and I want to see you there. We've got some discounted tickets right now, plus some additional bonuses. Again, all the information is in the link in the show notes, or you can jump on over to powerfullivingexperience.com, get registered, and I will plan on seeing you there along with 1,000 other impact-driven, incredible members of our community for 3 days that you will never forget. And now, back to your regularly scheduled episode. And that actually takes us to step number 4. Step number 4 is you emit a frequency. So just like inside of you, your beliefs become thoughts, your thoughts become emotions, your emotions become actions, and your actions produce results. Outside of you, there's this ripple effect of coordination in your reality to produce the results. Which results? Well, not necessarily the results that you want, but the results that you believe. So you emit a frequency. You're broadcasting. You think about it for a moment. You are an electrical, magnetic, biological being. And so every time you have a thought, there's an electrical activity in your brain. That's what a thought is. It's this lighting up of these neural networks. And then that thought is transmitted through your nervous system. That's what the emotion is. Your whole nervous system, you start to feel throughout your entire body this thought. That's what a feeling is. But this is all electrical activity, and so it's almost like a light bulb. You're starting to broadcast, or a radio receiver. You're broadcasting out this vibrational information. And all of life around you is influenced by this vibrational information. It's like everybody can hear the soft song that you're playing, no matter where they are in the world. And so they're all unconsciously reacting to it. You're creating coincidences and synchronicities in your life. So on one level, you're being influenced by your beliefs. You know, what time you get on Facebook, what ads you see, how many blueberries you scoop into your shake, which determines when you have to go to the grocery store to get some more blueberries, which then determines the timing of your life. It determines all the coincidences and synchronicities. So there's this massive intelligence that is functioning at a subconscious level, but it's also influencing everybody else. That's why when you think about your friend, you run into them at the grocery store. That's why when you believe that bad things happen to you, someone slams on their brakes in front of you and you get into a fender bender and you're late for work for the 3rd time after you've already gotten a warning and you get terminated. Bad things happen to good people. So if you look at the interactions that we're having with other people in our life, it's really a matching, right, of belief systems. That's a frequency. And we're attracting other people who will fulfill on what we believe, and we are fulfilling on what they believe. And that's why Einstein said reality is an illusion, albeit a persistent one. It's like a holographic experience. Ford said the man who thinks he can and the man who thinks he can't are both right. Because through this internal mechanism of how a belief becomes your reality, and through this external frequency of how you coordinate reality around you, you're creating your reality. And so if you believe that you can't do something, that'll become your reality. If you believe you can, that'll become your reality too. And the good news is there's no restriction or limitation on this. That's why in Romans, it said, be not conformed to this world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It says, hey, your reality is not fixed. Your reality is flexible. You're not stuck, conformed to this reality. But if you want to change it, you have to change the way that you think. And this takes us to step 5, which is that beliefs are decisions. I was doing beliefs work for a long, long time, trying to figure out how to change my beliefs, using a lot of great tools from a lot of great teachers. And I had this burning desire to understand, like, how can I more easily shift my beliefs? And when I was going for a walk with my wife one day on the beach, like, it hit me that beliefs are just decisions. I always thought beliefs were like these complicated programs, and I had to be an engineer to learn how to uninstall them and reinstall new beliefs. But what I realized was the beliefs are just decisions. Like that belief I have that there's something wrong with me, that was just an unconscious decision. You know, I adopted it from my parents, or it was a conclusion that I had based on some experience as a child. And in that moment, I decided that there was something wrong with me, and it formed a belief. But what's been happening, because no one ever taught me how the human being operating system works, no one ever really taught me this framework that I'm sharing with you, is that I thought I was stuck with my beliefs. But the belief was just a decision. I had just decided there was something wrong with me, and I was continuing to decide that. When I was in my 20s and I was making sales calls and I wasn't very good at it, the conclusion I came to or the decision I made was there's something wrong with me. When I was in my early 30s and I was in a relationship, it was the first girlfriend who ever cheated on me. The reaction I had to it was there's something wrong with me. These were unconscious decisions. And when I realized oh my gosh, beliefs are just decisions, I was like, well, wait a minute, I can just make a new decision. I don't have to continue to live this reality. I can just make a new decision. I can just decide that I am worthy of success. I can just decide that life is working for me. I can just decide that I have enough time for the things that must get done. I can just make new decisions that were the opposite of the limiting beliefs that I had. And I wanted these new decisions to stick. So I asked myself this really simple question. And right now, what I'm teaching you is a tool called the decision matrix. I asked myself this really important question, which is what evidence do I have for the fact that this new decision is true? That there isn't anything wrong with me and that I'm perfectly whole. And I sat with it for a while and I started finding evidence for it. What evidence do I have for the fact that money is easy to make? And I started remembering these instances in my life where either money was easy to make for me or I saw that it was easy to make for other people. And when I went and researched this, I realized that neuroscience tells us that close to 88% of the evidence that we've collected in life we ignore. And we only pay attention to the evidence that supports our belief systems. So if you've got a belief that money is scarce, even though you have evidence in your life that it's not, just think about it for a moment. There's more money in circulation than any time in the history of the world. There are more assets that exist than any time in the history of the world, from Bitcoin to cryptocurrency to real estate to businesses to stocks and bonds, right? It's like we're living at this time, which is like one of those old money booths. I'm probably outdating myself for our younger audience, but they used to throw people into a booth with a bunch of floating dollars and you'd grab as many dollars as you can. That's basically planet Earth right now. There's so much money flowing around planet Earth. How can we possibly say that money is scarce? But I had been pre-programmed to only pay attention to that. But when I made a new decision that life is abundant and life is prosperous and that I am abundant and I am prosperous, and I said, what evidence do I have for the fact that this new decision is true? I started activating dormant memories. I started literally activating the part of my brain that is the brain of a rich person. Think about that for a minute, how cool that is. Like the brain you have consists of all kinds of evidence that you've collected over the course of your life, but the brain that's active is dependent upon what you believe. By becoming aware of my limiting belief and making a new decision, which was the opposite of my limiting belief, and saying, what evidence do I have for the fact that this new decision is true? I started finding the evidence. At first, it was a little challenging, but I was willing to sit with it. And then as I got better and better at using this tool, the decision matrix, I would just sit down every single morning and I'd pay attention to all the negative voice in my head and I'd write it down in column 1. And then in column 2, I'd write down the opposite. And in column 3, I'd write down, hey, this is the evidence I have for this new decision. So this was huge for me. This was how I radically transformed who I was over the course of a couple short years. I went from broke with 2 homes in foreclosure, a bunch of credit card debt, no money in my bank account to, now I have as much money as I ever need to make. Would I like to make more? Sure, because it allows me to forward my mission in the world, but I'm good. I was single for 10 years, going out with a bunch of different women that I just were not the right women for me to be going out with. I made a decision I was going to meet my soulmate. And 2 weeks later, I met Carol. It was a very specific decision. I'm going to meet a beautiful, intelligent Colombian woman and make her my wife. 2 weeks later, I met my wife, beautiful, intelligent Colombian woman. So again, step 5 is that beliefs are decisions, and the power of decision and how we can actually make new decisions and reinforce it with evidence from our own life. This is the brain change. This is how you transform your neurophysiology and you activate the parts of you that are there, that are in alignment with wealth, health, relationships, success, spiritual connection. It's all there inside of you, but we have to start building the case against our limiting beliefs with some new decisions. Step 6, resentments are the source of all long-held beliefs. I got this question a lot when I started doing coaching. Yeah, but Dave, how come some of my beliefs are shifting, but others seem harder to let go of? And this is why towards the end of day 1 of the Powerful Living Experience, we do a resentments inventory. I take everybody through a very powerful forgiveness process. What happens is that our beliefs were formed in relationship with other people. It was the relationship with my mom and dad that influenced my belief that there was something wrong with me. And I had been trying to work on transforming there's something wrong with me for a long, long time, but I still held resentments towards my dad. I was angry at my dad for, not loving me the way I wanted to be loved and not being present for me the way I expected him to be present for me. We all want unconditional love of our parents, but guess what? Our parents are not unconditional beings. They're very conditional. The condition is their job. Their condition is their own trauma, right? Their condition is they're trying to figure out how to make ends meet, to provide for their families. Lots of conditions. As children, we expect them to be unconditional. And of course, some of us were born into families where there was physical abuse or sexual abuse. But ultimately, we had an expectation of what should have been with our parents, and when it wasn't that way, resentments are formed. Resentment is the emotional coping mechanism that protects us from the reality that, hey, our parents were not who we wanted them to be. But think about this for a moment. I can't let go of a limiting belief that was formed in relationship with my father if I continue to have this cord connected to my dad called resentment. So I had to really learn how to forgive my dad, forgive my mom, forgive lots of people, forgive my government, forgive my friends, forgive God, forgive my body, in order to let go of a lot of my limiting beliefs. And so resentments, if you've had some limiting beliefs that like, man, Dave, I've done the work and I'm just still holding on to them, you're probably still holding on to the person that you originally formed that belief with. So it's important that if you want to really be complete and you want to really be whole, and you want to be able to uninstall all those programs or those weeds and reinstall the person you came here to be, resentments into forgiveness is the mechanism that allows you to do that. Now, ultimately, this takes us to the big idea, which is step 7, and that is desire plus non-resistance equals desired result. So if you're tracking what I've been saying throughout this entire episode, what I want to give you is what I think is the most powerful, simple equation. If I was going to distill all of personal growth down into one equation, or if I was going to make it as simple as possible for you, it would be this. Any desire that you have, as long as you're non-resistant to the desire, 100% of the time you will produce the desired result. Desire plus non-resistance equals desired result. This is the way that you create anything in your life. A lot of us have been taught bad equations, like desire plus have enough money or have enough time equals desired result. That's not true. It's just something that was sold to us. Desire plus hustle and grind or work really hard equals desired result. It's not true. If you look at all the great spiritual teachings, if you understand neuroscience, if you understand behavioral psychology, if you understand consciousness theory, central to this idea is that everything that you want will become yours if you can be non-resistant to the thing that you want. That takes us back to what we talked about in the very beginning. What do you want? What's the problem? Because the problem will reveal your limiting beliefs. And if we can transform the limiting beliefs, we remove the resistance. Now desire plus non-resistance equals desired result. 100% of the time, no matter what it is. You want to become rich, you want to become healthy, you want to have an amazing relationship, you want to be connected to God, you want to change the world, you want to become the president of a country, whatever it is, I don't care what it is. You want to invent some new technology into the world. Everything you desire can be accomplished, and it is accomplished through the mechanism of non-resistance. This is the beautiful system that our Creator set up for us. Because we have desires, that's what propels us forward, but we meet ourselves in the reality that we've created. And if we want to continue to expand and achieve our desires, we must heal ourselves. We must identify the resistance or the misunderstandings that were passed on through generation to generation and become whole human beings. And the effect of becoming a whole human being is not only do you create what it is that you desire, because you're now non-resistant, but you also are living in your joy. It's the beautiful thing, right? Like we all want to create more in our lives, but you also get to enjoy your life. So this is the process. And I want to just emphasize one more thing, which is the biggest piece. And that is understanding what I just taught you is not enough. If you want to create change, you have to change your brain. The good news is that this is a skill. Anybody can learn how to do this, no matter how long it's been, no matter how big your trauma is, no matter what it is that you want. If you can really master this skill of mindset and treat it like your life depends on it, then you can change your life. And so here's what I want to invite you into. I want you to come learn with me. There's a link below, and it's in the show notes for the audio. You can check it out. It's for the Powerful Living Experience Live. It's 80% off plus bonuses. And I want to invite you to come join me and 1,000 entrepreneurs, spend 3 days with us mastering what matters most, which is your mindset. So thank you for being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I will see you not only in the next episode, but hopefully I will see you at the live event.
You want to have a powerful living experience, yes? You want to become a phenomenon, yes? You want to learn how to transition into the next evolution of who you are as a human being, yes? Up until now, personal development has really been a conversation about motivation and inspiration. It's been a philosophy.
People that are attracted to David are a community of like-minded people and mission-driven people, and we have just become this amazing family.
If you were to ask me, Dave, what's the most important thing that I should focus on in order to create a successful business, in order to have the amount of money I want in my bank account, in order to make the impact that I want to make in the world, in order to achieve my full potential and have an extraordinary life, my answer to you would be knowing how to change your thinking, how to dehabituate yourself from the automatic response of your brain to the experiences of your life.
This man, this David Bayer, can put it all together.
Now that I've been to the Power of Living experience, it's changed everything that I do. Everything just flows now, everything clicks.
When you learn how to free yourself from the negative bias of the mind, you become a phenomenon. You now have the capacity, you now have the energy, you now have the space to create powerfully in your life for being able to achieve your full potential. Mindset is the developed capacity to utilize the mind, to redesign and reorganize the brain, and it is the single most important skill you must learn how to develop as an entrepreneur or as a human being. This practice, this technology, this skill is the next evolution of the human species.
We're getting into some of the operating system, the first software that gets downloaded, the machinery that is running the software. That's what this work gets into.
I feel really beautiful and connected, and I want to thank you. Thank you.
I found myself at the Powerful Living experience. I had found a home.
I was so impressed with him as a person and his message that really aligned with my purpose.
I was dying inside. I felt trapped. Through this program, I literally got my heart, I got my soul, I got my mojo back.
Every single one of us has greatness inside of us. You want to have a powerful living experience. You want to become a phenomenon. There are areas in your life where you feel stuck and you want freedom. Now you have a map back to your personal power.